Welcome back to In the Loop, folks. Let's look at a big change in the business of college sports, as college athletes now have the rights to earn sponsorship money and have more power over their own brands. It's reshaping the economy of college sports and beyond, and providing new opportunities for the growth of women's sports. We'll look at how and why that came to be in the latest installment of our In the Loop series, Scoreboard. July 1st marks 1 year since the National Collegiate Athletic Association, better known as the NCAA, allowed college athletes to earn money off their name, image, and likeness, a trio often collectively known as NIL. It's dramatically reshaped the landscape for college athletes. For many years, college athletes got scholarships, but that was it. NCAA rules banned scholarship athletes from making any money without putting their eligibility and scholarship at risk. But now that's changing, as the NCAA changed its guidance and athletes are free to sign sponsorship deals with companies, offer lessons or camps in their sports, or fundraise for charitable causes. It's taken years of court fights and legislation to get here. One of the most pivotal cases involved Ed O'Bannon, a former basketball player at UCLA. O'Bannon sued when he found out that, years after he left, the university was still making money by using his image and likeness in a video game without paying him for it. Michael McCann, a professor at the University of New Hampshire and legal writer for the publication Sportico, is an expert in sports law, and he co-wrote a book with O'Bannon about the legal fight.
Yeah, he said, look, he made a lot of money playing sports, but most of his teammates never made anything. And he thought it was unfair that he's in this video game, he and his teammates, most of whom never made any money after college in sports, their identities were being sold in these games. And he challenged it and he won.
As the legal pressure came, states also joined in the fight, putting pressure on the NCAA by enacting their own laws. California passed the first NIL law in 2019.
It was not really about California. It was about forcing the NCAA to change after they'd punted on this issue so many times. They'd had little committee group after committee group that just never came to any sort of resolution or conclusion. And also that if California did it, every other state would have to address the issue because it would become a recruiting issue.
By the time Haley Hodson graduated high school in 2015, she had become the top volleyball recruit in the country and already played for the U.S. women's national team. She played on scholarship at Stanford University, but had to retire after multiple concussions. It's left her with a first-hand look at the limitations of the old system, and it led her to pushing California to put its NIL law in place.
Athletes need to have more agency, they need representation, they need economic opportunity, because what we're looking at right now is not that. And so that really opened the door for that. And I found myself testifying for a topic that I'd long cared about and had never even really considered that legislation could play a role in.
After California, 28 other states followed suit, passing their own laws governing NIL. 15 of them took effect July 1st of 2021. Ahead of that date, the Supreme Court handed down a ruling rejecting the NCAA's argument in a similar case, challenging restrictions on academic benefits like computers or internships. Instead of fighting further, the NCAA quickly took a different approach, issuing loose guidelines allowing athletes to have NIL rights.
It came about much quicker than they wanted it to, and because of that, their committees also have not issued clear guidance and language. So it's been a little bit of the wild, wild west. I think athletic administrators are really struggling.
As both athletes and universities try to navigate a new set of rules, it can leave some unsure as to what's okay and what isn't allowed.
I think the line is blurred at times. And I think at times there's a very thin line between what's permissible and what's not, depending on how it's packaged, how it's positioned. So it is becoming an issue for many athletic departments. If you have a booster who's willing to give a student athlete a $150,000 vehicle, that feels a little untoward in some regards, because of where the money came from.
But even as the NCAA launches investigations into schools for potential abuse of the new NIL rules, there's been an effect that's surprised industry experts. Although athletic departments and media outlets have often invested the vast majority of their money and attention into football and men's basketball, women athletes are earning a larger share of NIL deals than expected. Data from the NIL platform and marketplace Open Doors found that until May of this year, women's basketball was the second biggest sport for athlete sponsorship, trailing only college football. Even now, 4 of the top 6 sports for NIL compensation are women's sports.
College football is an outlier. If you remove college football from the data set, women's sports student athletes are out earning the men's sports student athletes. And I think that's an interesting trend to track as women's sports student athletes. For most of them, this is the peak earning potential for college student athletes on the women's side.
Athletes can take their brand into their own hands quicker now. If you're at the top of your game or have a large following, you can really cash in. The Wall Street Journal reported that University of Connecticut basketball star and 2021 National Player of the Year Paige Beckers was on track to earn over $1 million in NIL deals annually. And LSU gymnast Olivia Dunn is also set to earn a similar amount, owing that to her gymnastics success and her reach to over 5 million followers on TikTok and another 1.8 million followers on Instagram.
Products and companies and endorsers and advertisers, they want people who are relatable. They want people who are personable and relatable and will make their potential customers like tune in and dial in and engage. And women have been doing that, you know, with the personality and how relatable they are. All of the kinds of things that, you know, make celebrity endorsers effective, personality, likability, engaging, those kinds of things. That's what we're seeing with many of the female athletes.
Even if an athlete isn't on track to turn pro or go viral, NIL deals can make a real difference. Open Doors estimates that on average, depending on whether they play at the top level or in lower divisions, athletes can bring in at least a few hundred to a few $1,000s a year through activities like social media posts, autograph signings, and public appearances. At the same time, many of the folks we've talked to caution that NIL alone won't fix all of the remaining gender gaps in college sports. Even as this month marks 50 years since Title IX required colleges to offer at least as many athletic opportunities to women as to men, there's still work left to be done.
We're still seeing instances where there's some facility disparities, there's some overall support disparities, but we're also seeing it particularly at the leadership level. We know that women are still underpaid, so women coaches are still underpaid compared to their male counterparts. So we're still seeing salary inequities and things of that nature.
But there's a hope that having athletes who are putting in the work to market themselves could help raise interest in women's sports just by increasing their visibility to potential new fans.
They can see an athlete do something and they turn around and go try it themselves. They can actually see clips where athletes will show them how, okay, here's how I do this, right? Follow me, this is what I do. That whole see her, be her thing is so incredibly important. Little kid, a lot of young people would never even think of participating in a certain sport until then they see somebody doing it and they're like, maybe I should try that.
All right, let's talk to someone who has been able to capitalize on the new opportunities available to college athletes. Joining us now is Deja Kelly. She's a guard on the University of North Carolina women's basketball team, and she signed several deals with companies to use her name, image, and likeness. Deja, I told you right before we got started, I'm a Carolina fan, so thank you so much for joining us here on In the Loop.
Thank you for having me. It's great to meet a fellow fan. So go Heels, of course. But thanks for having me on.
So 2 quick things. All right. The first, I've seen your jersey and that thing looks legit. It's not like the Champ Sports replicas I used to try to snag when I was younger. But this is kind of leading me to where you are now as a college athlete and being able to take advantage of NIL deals. How many of these deals do you have now and with who?
Yeah, so the few that have came out already are, I'll name a few, are with Forever 21. That launch just came out early in May. Beats, I signed that back in March. Barcode, which I have equity in that company, which is really exciting. That's obviously my first deal like that. So that is a big one for me. And Duncan, I would say that was one of my very first pretty big NIL deals, which is really exciting. And obviously we have a few in the works. and Actively Black. That is the most recent one that I have just signed. That'll be coming out soon as well.
This rule change happened while you were in school. One day, none of this was accessible to you, and the next, it all was accessible. One of the things I'm really curious about is, how have you seen the change affect your life, and how have these opportunities changed things for you?
Yeah, these opportunities are amazing. I had no clue that this opportunity would be made available to us while I was still in school. So for it to happen just before my sophomore year, I think was super dope. But it's an opportunity to, create generational wealth for me. I think that for me to be able to showcase what I value and to be able to, just show the other side of just the basketball player that everyone sees. I think that this NIL allows us collegiate athletes to do so.
Beyond maybe a financial come up, what else do you hope these opportunities can promote for you?
We've been praying for times like this, right? Like to be able to make the amount of money you would make once you graduate college while you're still in college, I think is a super, super great opportunity. And I think we're taking full advantage. You see college athletes across the country that are taking full advantage of this opportunity and doing really well off of it. They're making a lot of money. I think that's really exciting. Just seeing how everyone is going about the process. You see a lot of diversity, a lot of versatility. And then that obviously leads to wealth financially.
I want to broaden the scope just a little bit here. How much do you think or hope that these rule changes help make women's basketball or women's sports in general more visible? I mean, how do you think this might help current and future athletes promote the game?
I think it's kind of doing that already. When people are scrolling through their timeline on Twitter, Instagram, they're seeing a lot of these female athletes, come out, like with me, coming out on Sports Illustrated with Forever 21. Female athletes are signing with Beats. You usually see male athletes, making those kind of deals. NBA athletes. I think that's the majority of what the outside world sees. So I think just with NIL, it's created a lot of coverage just in its own little world, I think, because women are honestly, they're kind of doing it better than the men right now, I would say, because they're taking full advantage. And that's something we know.
No surprises there, folks.
Exactly. But we know that the ball stops bouncing at some point. So we want to really take advantage of and showcase, that we're more than just an athlete. And I think that's super important. And I think, some men are starting to do that as well. But I think us women have had to do that kind of our whole lives. So I think for us to really be able to take full advantage of the opportunity, it's on full display.
Deja Kelly is a guard on the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill women's basketball team. Not only does she have court vision, but she's got a little bit of foresight when it comes to what she wants out of her career. Deja, thanks so much for chopping it up with us, and truly best of luck next season.
Thank you so much for having me. Go Heels.